Welcome to Cheaper Than Therapy, a podcast that journeys into conversations that demystify, destigmatize, and desensitize what goes on both inside the therapy room and in daily life.
I'm Vanessa Bennett.
And I'm Danae Logan.
And we are seekers, soul sisters, and holders of sacred space. Every week, we sit down for soul-provoking conversations with fellow seekers, thought leaders, change makers, and even real people during live coaching sessions as they navigate the hard work it takes to be a human.
This is Cheaper Than Therapy.
Hello, guys. Welcome to another episode of Cheaper Than Therapy. We are talking to Kay today. And Kay wrote in about something that I just had to laugh, not at her, but with her, because I was telling Danae she feels like my spirit animal. I think we're going to talk a lot about control today and struggling with letting go of control, struggling with letting the pieces fall where they may, struggling with feeling as though, how do I word this? Like, you have this perspective that it feels like maybe people aren't listening to or maybe necessarily respecting sometimes. And that's frustrating to watch, to sit back and watch and experience. So what's coming up for you around this right now, Kay?
Well, right now, I'm dealing with a little bit of it at work and at home.
Okay.
So at work, I'm an assistant to a few lawyers, and I assist some of them, and I have another secretary in the office that assists some of them, and we back each other up. And I feel like every time, like I'm going on vacation next week, and every time I get ready to take time off, she either calls in the week before or the week after, and there's always some kind of drama. And so I get frustrated because I feel like if things fall through the cracks, or if something doesn't get done, or because she's not here, that I'm going to get blamed. So I start worrying about even taking time off. Should I even take time off? Because what if she's not here?
Is that true? Can I interrupt you? Is that true? Will you get blamed?
No.
Okay.
No. And I have people telling me all the time, like my boss telling me, they tell me all the time, like, this will not be on you. But I feel like, and I don't know exactly where it all comes from. Maybe, a lot of my past of making sure if everything doesn't go right, it's all going to come on me. It's all going to come down on me, and it's going to be all my fault. And so I feel like no matter how much I coach her and try to rely on her, this always happens. And then I blame myself. And then I want to take like my laptop and my phone and everything with me on vacation. And my boss is like, no, you have to let her deal with it. So I want to control everything that goes on in the office because I feel like if I don't, it's not going to be right. And it's going to be all my fault. And then like the same at home. I've been living with my boyfriend for 8 years, and he has a 13-year-old son who I feel like my kids are grown. My kids are adults. I had 2 boys, and they're 23 and 27 now. And I feel like I know how to help them, how to help him be a better father, and how to help his son with things, and nobody listens to me. So then I go back into that same mindset of, okay, if they don't listen to me and things go bad, I put all the blame on myself. Like I should have helped them more. And then I get frustrated. I get really frustrated. And sometimes I react in ways that probably aren't healthy, like lashing out. And then there's the when things do go south, it's the I told you so. And then that creates a whole new other argument. So, I think it's
so many directions I want to take this in.
Okay.
So many directions. Okay. So the first thing I want to ask you is, and you might not know the answer to this, but I think it's a nugget that's worth starting to ponder. what purpose is it serving you to constantly shoulder all the blame and responsibility?
I don't think it's serving me any purpose.
It is.
Maybe
It is.
some
Otherwise
should.
otherwise you wouldn't be doing it, right? So like I said,
Yeah.
you might not know the answer to this question right now, tangibly in the moment, but trust me when I tell you it's serving a purpose or you wouldn't be doing it. Now, that purpose could be a lot of different things. It could be, I find my sense of worth and value as a human being and the one that always fixes all the mistakes and makes sure things always go perfectly right? It could be, if I don't do all the things and I'm out of control, I know that I can't tolerate or handle things not being perfect. And so that serves the purpose of like my inability to tolerate loss of control, right? There's a lot of different ways, like the ways to skin a cat, whatever they say, but it's serving a purpose. And so I think whether we solve that now or that's something you kind of take away and ponder later, we really need to think more about what that purpose is, right? Remember when I talk about in the codependency classes, how I talk about the martyr syndrome and how massively common that is for people who struggle with codependency? That serves a real serious purpose, right? A couple things, but one of them being, it gives me a sense of value and identity. Another thing is it's a really good way for me to keep myself separated and only so vulnerable and so intimate with people around me when I either place myself on a 1-up or a 1-down level, right? So I don't want to take up the entire session talking about the purpose of it, but I want you to know that there's a lot of meat in there that I think you should kind of sit with and play around with, because there's some dismantling that needs to happen.
Yeah. And when you said martyr just now, all I could think about was my mom. My mom was a very codependent person and a complete martyr. And I think I learned a lot of it from her, like everything having to be perfect and making sure everything is, all lined up. And if it's not, then it's a disaster and it's all my fault.
Yeah. I actually want to build on what you said too, V, because I do think that it is important for us to understand the payoff in why we're doing what we're doing. Because if I'm getting something from this, I am going to continue to do it forever. And I think that sometimes, like V and I will talk a lot about how the shadow side of people pleasing is that it's actually really manipulative, right? The shadow side of overfunctioning that came to my awareness recently and was sort of one of those like moments is overfunctioning is actually a very narcissistic behavior.
100%.
It makes me feel seen, important, powerful, all-knowing, and I am doing it to grandize my sense of self. Feels like it's about that other person. It's really about me, right? And it's really about the fact that I haven't felt seen. And when I'm controlling you, it makes me feel powerful.
That does make sense.
And this is why we talk about, right, the connection between narcissism and codependency and why there is a lot of overlap, right? We're not talking motivation, intrinsic motivation for the behaviors is different. But the bottom line is that's when we start to seep into the more narcissistic kind of tendencies within codependency, is when you have to ask yourself, is this really about them or is this about me? Right. And once the answer is it's actually about me, that's when you're kind of swimming in the narcissistic pool. And again, we're not talking motivation, right? We're not saying you're doing it because, for the same reasons that maybe a narcissist would.
No, but and similar to a narcissist, it's not conscious. You're not like, I am doing this to make myself seem more. That's just, but that is the feeling it gives me. Like, I think maybe when you wrote in us, you said, I catch myself wanting to say, I told you so, right?
And I laughed because I was like, that is on the tip of my tongue all the time.
But there's a little bit of self-grandizing that. It's
my God.
Right? Like, I am powerful. I know all, right?
I know better, right? This is the same idea as like giving people unsolicited feedback and advice, what I always talk about, right? It's this idea and then getting pissed off when they don't take your feedback or they don't take your advice. There's a little bit of this, like, I am all knowing, I am a little bit better, I'm a little bit more knowledgeable. And so when they don't take it, you feel like they're looking you in the face and saying, you don't know shit. That's not what they're doing, but that's what it translates to you as what they're saying, right? It's a personal affront on me needing to feel like I know all and like I have purpose and value in this relationship by being the one that you come to that knows all. And if you challenge that in any way, you are directly challenging my self-narrative.
Mm.
Yeah,
So talk about
exactly.
personalizing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's exactly it. Yeah.
I feel like I want to hear, like what we said is a big thing to say. So I
Yeah.
want to hear how that feels to hear that.
Yeah. It's in the first instance, it's like when, when you said it's like narcissistic, it's kind of like, what?
I know.
No,
Ooh.
and then you kind of, oh,
Mm.
but it makes sense because it is like, I feel like, oh, I've been there before. I've raised two boys, so you should listen to me and I know everything. But I honestly don't know what the outcome of either one of them not listening to me is. Like, for example, him, the kid brushing his teeth. I don't know what's going to happen. I mean, I've seen it, he's gone to the dentist and he's had cavities, and my boyfriend's had to pay the bill. And I sat there, and I think the first time I think I did say, I told you so. And it was like, and then it creates a whole big other problem. But then honestly, I don't know if they don't listen to me. I don't know what's going to happen to either one of them. And I've been told by previous therapists, let them fail. Just let them, and then it's so hard for me because that control, like that, I can't let them fail. They have to listen to me and succeed in what I'm saying. And then,
Yeah. And I think, hey, there's something in that too, that where that starts to become a little bit less grandiosity and kind of that narcissistic feeling, that starts to become this over caring quality that codependents have, right? Where it's like, I don't want you to feel the pain, the suffering, the consequences of these actions, right? I'm going to try to take that from you. And I'm going to try to, head it off at the pass by stepping in and being controlling and carrying the burden of responsibility. In this example, we'll talk about your teeth, right? Because I know where that goes. Now, two things. Number one, you don't, like you just said, you don't actually know where that road leads. I mean, most of us can guess, but there's not a guarantee, right? And also, here's the thing. If you continue to swoop in, and I know logically you know this, you continue to swoop in with a 13-year-old and his father, brush your teeth, brush your teeth, brush your teeth, brush your teeth. Even if you do solve the issue right now, fantastic. I guarantee you he'll be a 20-year-old dude living on his own that doesn't brush his teeth because he didn't learn that intrinsically. That was put upon him externally. We learn shit intrinsically when we do something and it either blows up in our face and we learn from it, right? Or it feels great and we learn from that. There's an internal click that happens. Now, here's the thing about a codependent. We never had that experience.
Right.
For most of us, that's not how we learned things. It was either that experience was taken away from us from our own codependent or narcissistic parents, right? We were so busy being in control and being the parent that we never actually got to do that. Like, I have to fuck up in order to learn something because we were way too busy running the household. Whatever the reason is, you didn't get that experience. And so it's really hard to know, not logically know, but like know that that is how people learn. So rather than knowing that, like, no, this is just how he needs to learn that experience, I'm going to try to go in and save and save and save and fix. Right.
Exactly. And I went from, codependent parents to an alcoholic husband.
Yeah.
Like when I was 18. So it was just
Same.
Yeah.
And I would argue, to V's point a little bit, even when we're in that space of I'm caretaking for you and I'm attempting to be caring, that's still about me. That's still about me being needed, like needing to be needed, right? It actually isn't about that other person. And I think that like it still circles back to, what you were saying about letting people fail. We control what we don't trust. So the message you're sending that person every time you are attempting to control them is you are not trustworthy. I don't believe in you. And I'm, like whether this is your coworker, whether this is your kids, like whoever it is. Yeah. Like this is me from the more under functioning side of the spectrum. The message I always got was you don't believe in me. That's why you're doing this for me, because you think I'm incapable.
And so then what happens? I then think I'm incapable.
Yeah.
And so like, I would argue that's not loving. I actually don't think it's loving to reinforce the idea that somebody isn't capable of taking care of themselves, that they're going to fall on their face unless you're there to catch them. That's not how I want to be loved.
Exactly. And he is an under functioner and I'm an over functioner. So
Of
that
course
makes
he is.
perfect sense. Yeah.
That's why y'all found each other.
Well, and we did get in an argument one time because I was just like, I'm tired of caring so much and nobody listens to me. And I just feel like, I'm getting like, their back turned on me, and he goes, stop caring. And I was like, how? I don't know how do you do that? Like, how do you just not care and just let people fall on their face?
I don't think it's not caring, right? Because I think the bottom line is, at this point in your life, you are wired to be overly empathic to a fault, right? I don't think it's about being like, just don't care. But I think for you, it's going to be about learning some tools that are going to help you in the moment start to sit with that discomfort that comes up and that kind of like gut reaction to jump in and say something or fix something or control something. And if that means that you need to remove yourself physically from the room, right? They're fighting, they're arguing, let's talk about your partner and his kid. They're bitching about the teeth and they're getting in whatever. And he's saying no. And there's this thing, and you are feeling that internal, like, I'm going to go crazy. You remove yourself from the situation because that situation doesn't concern you.
Yes.
And now you don't have to do that without giving your boyfriend a heads up. I actually think this is a great way for you and him to connect more deeply on the inner work that you're trying to do, because you don't want to necessarily leave him in the cold. You can say to him, here's some things that I'm going to start working on. One of them is, when I'm in a situation like this example, and I start to want to control, I start to want to step in with the finger wagging, I told you so, I'm going to remove myself from the situation. I'm going to leave the room. I want you to know that ahead of time so that you don't all of a sudden just turn around and think I huffed out, because that's not what I'm doing. I'm taking care of me. I'm taking care of me, and I'm making sure that this doesn't impact our relationship by me stepping in and over functioning. So just so you know, moving forward, this is a strategy I'm going to try. You can give him that heads up, but you need to start playing around with some of those tools in the moment to start alleviating that anxiety for yourself, without doing the thing that alleviates the anxiety, which is the control.
And that's a really important point, V, because that's the thing about our overfunctioning is it's all external focus so that I don't have to focus on me, so that I don't have to sit with the discomfort in me. If I can control other people, then I don't have to be with what might be there within me if I stop doing that. So I do think that's why it's such an effective strategy to say, no, worry about yourself, remove yourself, stop being in the space of other, and bring the focus back to self,
And I would say same at work.
Absolutely.
Same thing at work. If you find yourself kind of getting in that like strung, high strung, like this is happening. Oh, why does she always do this? You need to remove yourself, even if it's for 5 minutes, take a bathroom break, go sit in the bathroom, feel the feelings in your body, cry the cries if you need to of that tension and that stress that's coming out of your face. It's okay. Take some breaths. Notice, by the way, the thought loop that's going on. I always like to say, whenever we get into a habit where we say somebody always does this, never does that, we're in that state of black and white thinking. I would say there's almost always a kernel of like, what else could be true? Right? I used to have a therapist that would do that to me every time. Even if I was talking about somebody that was perpetually almost always an asshole, if I use the word always or I use the word never, she would stop me and say, I want you to think of a time where that wasn't the case. And she would make me think of a time. And so that's another strategy. Like especially because I've heard you say the always, she always does this when we're talking about your coworker. I'm not minimizing the times that she has, but sometimes it's an effective strategy to cut that black and white thinking off, to challenge yourself and say, okay, when was that not the case? Has there ever been a case where she's actually done something small to help me out? Has there ever been a case where I actually could rely on her? Maybe it's not as many times as you would have liked, but it's a good way to challenge that kind of thinking.
Yeah, for sure. That makes sense.
And the other, tool that I just want to offer is thinking about like what my relationship is with my faith, my trust, like some sort of power outside of myself. Because a lot of this, like narcissistic tendencies or, ways that I attempt to control are God complexes. Like, I believe I'm God. I believe I know everything. I believe I'm in control here. Like, okay, are you sure?
And there's fear in that. I mean,
Of
it's not always from a
course.
grandiosity place, right? Or grandiose place. A lot of times it's like, I don't trust that there's something bigger than me. And so if I don't do it, the world's going to implode.
Yeah.
Right?
Well,
I
and it's not just that. It's not just the fear. There's a couple fears. There's the fear that things aren't going to get done right or things aren't going to happen right. And then there's the fear of it's going to be all my fault. Like there's always that fear that, well, if this goes wrong, they're going to look at me and be like, what happened? I'm both at work and at home. And I know that's not true to an extent, but there's still that fear. And I think it comes from my past relationships that if things don't go perfectly right or something goes wrong, it's going to be my fault.
And so how do you hold yourself in that space, right? So if this is a historic thing where when something has gone wrong, someone has told me it was all my fault, or I was shamed when I was little for that, right? How do I hold myself with compassion around my humanity, that humans aren't supposed to be perfect? Nobody is. That's impossible. So what if I just leaned a little bit into the inevitable space I'm not going to be perfect. It's a given. I'm going to make mistakes.
And 9 times out of 10, they don't blame me. not in this relationship,
right?
So it's like an irrational fear. But when you're in it in your head, it's hard to think rationally, and it's hard to say this is not a real fear.
Well,
Like this is not the way it's going to go. Yeah.
Right. I mean, the bottom line is when you're in that state of heightened emotion, you're not actually thinking rationally, which is why some of those like very specific kind of tools or techniques can help that. It can help like bridge that gap, bring that thinking mind back online. Right. I'm swept up in the non-logical, non-linear, emotional. It's all my fault. I have to control all my triggers, my childhood wounds. Like it's just all swirling. And if I can, in a moment, grab something, leave the room, get in my body, right? Leave the room and say, I challenge that thinking. What else can be true? Even if I can grab a glimmer of something like that, it's like gears grinding. Like there is a process of like, it stops it for just that nanosecond, where sometimes it's enough for that thinking mind to come back online and you to start to be able to self-soothe a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is just like my belief in the way it works for me, and it, take it or chuck it. But sometimes I'm so in the space of rumination and thoughts that I can't get there. And I have to ask the universe to help me redirect my thinking. I have to ask for help settling myself down. And that means getting still and sometimes like praying, whatever works for you. But sometimes the thoughts just feel so big and overwhelming that I can't get there by myself. Yeah.
Yeah. It's hard sometimes. But yeah, taking what you're saying in like leaving the room and taking a few moments, taking a few breaths, and just that I think will help a lot.
You challenge those narratives, right? Like, because when we're thinking, it's like, we're so like, this is it. This is how it is. This is how, right? Our mind has such a way of being very sure of itself. And sometimes it's that small voice. What else could be true? What else could be true? What else could be true? Or to Danae's point, like it's this idea of like the whole like give it to God thing, right? It's like, okay, this feels bigger than me. So instead of trying to solve it, I'm going to sit and I'm going to breathe. And maybe I'm going to say, I need a little bit of help right now to calm this
Jesus,
world.
take the wheel moment.
Yeah, exactly.
It's real. But Kay, I also want you to play with playing the tape through a little bit on the worst case scenarios, the catastrophes that are happening in your head, right? Like he doesn't brush his teeth and then he goes to the dentist and then
what?
And then what, right? Because sometimes it's so big in our head because we're not going to the conclusion. Then all of his teeth are going to fall out. Like what then, right? Like really making yourself actually continue to play the tape through when I want to stop it, just like, and then the sky is going to fall. Well, no, the sky probably won't fall. So what will actually happen next? Yeah.
Right. Well, and also he's the kind of, he's at that age and he's the kind of kid that he will push back on anything I say anyway. So it's almost like not even worth saying. It's just let him. And what Vanessa said, sometimes people, they have to have that thing that happens that make them go, oh, and learn it on their own.
Get that first root canal and see how quickly you'll be.
But here's the thing. Even if that kid, he's 13, even if you get a root canal tomorrow, he still would never give you the credit. You're right. I should have listened to you and brushed my teeth. So get that shit out of your head right now. He's
You're
13.
not going to get it.
You're not getting that validation.
Exactly.
Hell no.
Exactly.
Maybe when he's 35 and he's wearing dentures, he'll come back to you and say, I should have listened to you. But right now,
when he'll say it when you don't need it. He'll say it when you have completely surrendered the need for him to validate it. That's really what, the way it happens.
Yeah.
And you're right. I mean, you did raise two boys. You know how that works. The harder you push, the harder they push back.
Yeah.
Right. And so again, going back to like, what am I getting from this? I mean, what are you getting from the constant battling? What are you getting from the constant push-pull dynamic of this relationship? What do you're getting something. Otherwise you wouldn't keep doing it. And so there's some takeaway for you, I think, in that, to like sit with that, do some journaling around that, like, and ask yourself that question in all these very specific areas in your life.
Right. Yeah. That's something I need to work on for sure.
And at work, it's exposure therapy, girl. You got to back off, back up, leave your computer at work, and let whatever's going to happen. Now, here's the thing. If it affects you directly, that conversation becomes a little bit different, but it's still a conversation, not of one, by the way. That becomes a conversation, because genuinely, I've been there. If you've got somebody that you're supposed to be able to rely on and you actually can't, and they've shown, not that you've just done it in your head, but they've actually shown that you can't. Unfortunately, that becomes a conversation where maybe it is you, them, and one of the bosses duking out in a room, right? That's a different kind of conversation. But when we're talking about this always never swirl that you've got going on, this is a little bit of exposure therapy. You have to leave the computer at the office and force yourself to just walk away. Yeah. And let the chips fall where they will.
And enjoy a vacation without looking at my emails or trying to fix all the problems at work. Yeah.
That resentment for you is giving you too much pleasure right now. You don't want to let it go.
You're getting high on that supply, girl.
It's giving you something. You gotta let that lie. Whoop.
Yep.
Oh, I feel you so
you can
much.
See these smiles right now.
We're all just kind of looking at each other laughing, because this struggle is real. It is real. Yeah. We're like kind of joking, but when we're in the middle of it and we're caught up in it, it is powerful. It's all consuming.
I think it's important what V just said, to name that. Control creeps up on all of us in the sneakiest ways. And it's like, oh shoot, I'm trying to control somebody else. Look at me. This is like, I don't know that this ends. I think it becomes something we learn how to manage when it comes up. It doesn't go away.
Yeah. Well, and then there's triggers too. Like you get triggered by things from your past that are happening now that really aren't happening, but in your mind. And then it's hard to get out of that, but but
you start to develop the tools where you can eventually get out of it. And then tomorrow is another day where something else will probably happen. Right. And that's the dance. It's like 1 step forward, 2 back, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. And this is just how, whenever we know what that kind of core wounding is, like, that's the way we work with it. It's a forever dance. And it's not to say that to be discouraging. It's just to say, like, we need to change the way we look at that stuff and have relationships with that stuff. It's not about fixing or solving or healing from it. It's about learning to dance.
Yeah. Yeah. That's beautiful.
Thanks. I made it up.
That was beautiful, V.
Thanks. All right. Okay. Well, listen, enjoy your vacation.
Leave your computer at home.
Move your computer. Go enjoy your vacation. That is your homework.
I will, for sure.
Let the sky fall if it needs to.
Okay.
Keep us posted.
I will try not to hold the sky up.
You can't anyway, even if you tried. So get over yourself, okay?
All right, girl. You take care.
All
See you
right.
later.
Thank you.
Ooh, control.
Such a lovely topic. So fun to roll around in.
That word.
Oh, I
That
know
beast.
it well. I know it well.
I mean, we all do.
Yeah, she's so aware. You know, it's funny when you talk to people that are like, "Oh, I know. I know what I'm doing." And
Yeah.
I
Can't stop. Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. I mean, I think that's sometimes why we throw in these, like, you're being manipulative. You're being kind of narcissistic. Like those words that like none of us want to think of ourselves that way.
shake you out of it.
And they feel a little biting, like, oh, I don't want to be that person. But I mean, they are the deeper truths underneath why we're doing what we're doing. And they can be a little jarring to the system, hopefully, in terms of like a wake up call. I know, like, it's been that for me in terms of people pleasing. Like, you're actually being a little manipulative right now, you know?
Yeah, I mean, that's so much of my journey with my codependent shit has been around the realization that I can show up and be a lot more similar to those narcissists that have been in my life than I actually would like to believe. And if I see a higher version of myself, I really have to check myself when I'm in those moments. And I can check myself and still be compassionate with myself, right? But I don't know. I've been doing a lot of dancing with this idea of like, what's the balance between the shaking you by the shoulders and the compassion, right? And it's like, I think there has to be room a little bit for both, depending on what we're talking about, obviously. But in a situation like this, it needs to be a little bit of that, like it being a little narcissistic to have that, like, oh my God, punch to the gut. And then we can show compassion to like the why and the inner child and the wounding. But there's like a dance between those two energies, you know?
Well, it's interesting because, you know, if we circle back to what we were saying to Kay about, you know, people sort of rise to the expectations that we hold for them, right? And if we hold ourselves in that same way, shaking ourselves by the shoulders is actually the loving thing to do. Because I know you can be bigger than this. I know you can be more accountable to the type of person you want to be in the world. Like, I actually do think that's loving, compassionate to the person that we're trying to be and grow into, you know?
Agreed. And yeah, I mean, I think especially when you have somebody who's so aware, that shaking is even more important. Where it's like, girl, you know what you're fucking doing.
Yeah, it's a little pattern interruption we were playing with her, because like she's aware, she knows, but like, how do we get in there and like, with this pattern? Because it needs to stop, right?
And by the way, this is why I always tell people with therapy, you know, get in there, do the work. When you feel like you've come to a good place and you have a lot of self-understanding and you're ready to like go out into the world and like put the rubber to the road, right? Do it. And don't be afraid to occasionally come back for a quick oil change, because all of us need that sometimes. Sometimes we do need to come back and be like, I'm in this pattern, to have that person shake us and then send us back out again. You know, there's no shame in that. It's like, we all need that kind of like reminder. And I think that's what can be powerful about having that like relationship with somebody like a therapist or a coach, where you can like, hey, I need a little check. I need a little tune up, you know?
For sure.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us for this episode of Cheaper Than Therapy.
Be sure to share it with a friend, subscribe, and give us a 5-star review on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts.
And if you want to connect with us more, find us on Instagram at Cheaper Than Therapy, the podcast.